Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jashodanandana Raja Jana Ranjana Jashodanandana Raja Jana Ranjana Muna Tiravana Chadi Muna Tiravana Chadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnuvad Paramhansa Parivrajaka AC Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Anand Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunagiri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadip Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamana Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai All glories to the all glories to the all glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Brahmovacha Naitat Swarupam Bhavatoso Padartha Bheda Rahaihi Purusho Yavad Ikshet Jnanasya Chartasya Gunasya Chashrayo Maya Mayad Yatirikto Matas Tvam Nai Brahmo Vacha Nai Tatsvarupam Bhavato Sopadartha Veda Grahai Purusho Yavadikshet Jnanasya Chartasya Gunasya Chashrayo Maya Mayad Vyatirikto Matastvam Naitat Swarupam Bhavato Sopadartha Bheda Grahai Purusho Yavadikshet Jnanasya Chartasya Gunasya Chashrayo Maya Mayat Yatirikto Vatastvam Brahma Uvacha, Lord Brahma said, Na, not, Etat, this, Surupam, eternal form, Bhavataha, your, Asau, that other, Pada, Artha, knowledge, Peda, different, Grahahi, by the acquiring, Purushaha, person, Yavat, as long as, Ikshet, wants to see, Jnanasya, of knowledge, Cha, also, Artasya, of the objective, Gunasya, of the instruments of knowledge, cha, also, ashrayaha, the basis, maya mayat, from being made of material energy, yatiriktaha, distinct, mataha, regarded, tvam, you. Lord Brahma said, "My dear Lord, your personality and eternal form cannot be understood by any person who is trying to know you through the different processes of acquiring knowledge. Your position is always transcendental to the material creation, whereas the empiric attempt to understand you is material, as are its objectives and instruments." Purport. It is said that the transcendental name, qualities, activities, paraphernalia, etc. of the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be understood with our material senses. The attempt of the empiric philosophers to understand the absolute truth by speculation is always futile, because their process of understanding, their objectives, and the instruments by which they try to understand the absolute truth are all material. The Lord is aprakrita, beyond the creation of the material world. This fact is also accepted by the great impersonalist Shankaracharya, Narayana Parovyaktat Andam Avyakta Sambhava. Avyakta, or the original material cause, is beyond this material manifestation and is the cause of the material world. Because Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is beyond the material world, one cannot speculate upon him by any material method. One has to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead simply by the transcendental method of Krishna consciousness. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhaktya mam abhijanati. Only by devotional service can one understand the transcendental form of the Lord. The difference between the impersonalists and the personalists is that the impersonalists, limited by their speculative processes, cannot even approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whereas the devotees please the Supreme Personality of Godhead through his transcendental loving service. Sevanmukhihi, due to the service attitude of the devotee, the Lord is revealed to him. The Supreme Lord cannot be understood by materialistic persons, even though he is present before them. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna therefore condemns such materialists as mugdhas. Mugdha means rascal. It is said in the Gita, only rascals think of Lord Krishna as an ordinary person. They do not know what Lord Krishna's position is or what his transcendental potencies are. Unaware of the transcendental potencies, the impersonalists deride the person of Lord Krishna, whereas the devotees, by dint of their service attitude, can understand him as the personality of Godhead. In the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna also confirmed that it's very difficult to understand the personality of the Lord. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadhati Shapadantikam Bande Hang Shri Guru Shri Jatapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagrajatam Shagana Raganatan Vidam Dam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savatutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Shahagana Lolita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriya Vancha Kolpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Pyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vashadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Brahmavacha Naitat Swarupam Bhavatoso Padartha Heda Grahai Purusho Yavat Ikshet Dhyanasya Chartasya Gunasya Chashraya Maya Mayad Vyatirikto Matastvam. Lord Brahma is the most intelligent person in the universe. We could say that he's the supreme scientist in the universe, supreme engineer, certainly. But from his mature realization, he says that the various empiric and speculative methods for understanding the absolute truth won't work. Achintya kalu ye bhavana tarkena yojiye. One can't understand the inconceivable by logic because he's inconceivable. What is that? Atas Shri Krishna Namadi na bhaved grayam indriye. Atas Shri Krishna Namadi, the name, form, qualities, pastimes, and everything else about the personality of Godhead are beyond understanding by the gross material senses or the subtle material mind, because they're all material. Atas Shri Krishna Namadi. What is that? Bheda Grahai. Bheda Grahai, different ways of trying to grasp. We have that word for understanding in English also, to grasp something. So that's the word in Sanskrit also. Graha means to grasp. Now, there are different methods for trying to grasp the personality of Godhead, but none of them work if they're only within the jurisdiction of the material energy. Jnanasya chartasya. Gunasya chashraya. What they're trying to understand, the ways they're trying to understand it, are all material. So first of all, and when applied to the personality of Godhead, the result is misunderstanding. Namam dushkrita namurta. What is that? Mudhoyam nabhijanati mamebhya paramagriya. What is the beginning? I have too many verses in my head at once now. Avajananti mam mudha manashim tanamashritam. That's actually better. Param bhama majananto mamabhuta mahesham. Avajananti mam. They deride me. Avajananti, they slight me, they neglect me, they deride me. Avajananti manam, avajananti mam, mudha. Mudha is Krishna, the mudhas, the fools, dull-headed fools. Manasham tanamash, because it appears to them that Krishna has the form of a human being. And so they think he must be like them, a man with a material body, maybe a little exceptional, maybe over-glorified by stories. Param bhavam ajananto, they're ignorant of Krishna's transcendental position, his transcendental powers, his transcendental identity. Ajananta, they're in the dark about these things. Mamabhuta Maheshwara, they don't understand his position as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the controller of everything. They just think it's some sort of something. They don't know. Even Lord Brahma didn't know. He admitted that. The Brahma Vimohan Leela is there, in which Brahma thought that, what is this, what's going on here? Who is this cowherd boy? So he tested by his mystic powers, but he was overwhelmed. He couldn't end Krishna, and he later admitted that maybe one day the scientists will be able to smash the entire universe to powder and count the number of particles. Let's be, or Prabhupada said, or roll the sky up like their bedroll. But still they wouldn't be able to understand. We have that. Gunatmanaste pi gunan vimatum vitavatir nasya kaishivesya kalena yarva vimita tovar upamsa bhakya mihikat. Yes, they'll never be able to understand Krishna. Lord Brahma tried to do it at the beginning of the universal creation. He was wondering, who am I? What am I doing here? What is this that I get here? And so he began investigating, but he couldn't understand. He thought the source of my birth must be within the water below the lotus, but he couldn't reach that source by any amount of acquired power. He had to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All right, are there some questions?
Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So my question is that we say that those who do not worship Krishna is a mudha, and
Anyone who?
anyone who does not worship Krishna or worships any is a mudha. But Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita that he fixes, say if a person is worshipping a particular deity or demigod, then he fixes his intelligence there or his heart there, so that he does not fall down. So if you can
We
explain
say that one who neglects the Krishna is a murta, but we also hear from Bhagavad Gita that if someone wants to worship a demigod, then Krishna gives him the intelligence by which to do it. Yes, if someone wants to be a murta, Krishna gives him the intelligence to be a murta. Kamaistaistar hritagana prapadyante Jayadvaita. He takes away their real intelligence so that they can surrender to such and such demigod, Kshipramhi Manashe Loke Siddhi, and attain their objectives very quickly, because they're aiming low. Is that okay?
And one more.
It's just like, yeah, anyway, yes, go ahead.
Yes, Maharaj. One more question. Like the demigods like Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma, they are also devotees of the Lord. They are Vaishnavas. Like
They're also,
Vaishnavas.
yeah,
So how come if we worship them, then how come that be?
how come if we worship them, what?
So, like, let me think.
Just speak loud.
Yes, Maharaj. No, I was just
Or
like
you're-
paraphrasing the question.
You're figuring out your question, okay.
So, Maharaj, like this is the
But
question.
still
which I
you have to speak loud. And it's not a throat microphone.
Yes, Maharaj. Okay. So we say that we have to pay obeisances and respect to all the Vaishnavas. But when it comes to worshipping demigods like Lord Brahma or Lord Shiva, who are also Vaishnavas, so
We worship them also as Vaishnavas. Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, we respect them as Vaishnavas. But the problem is that people are worshiping them as separate gods for some material result. Be smart. If they want to, we don't mind even what to speak of Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva. The gopis were worshipping Katyayani. Rukmini was also worshipping Shiv Parvati. But their prayer was, please let me be engaged with Krishna. Yes, it has a life of its own, this microphone, in which it does whatever it does. Okay. But they were also, let it do whatever it wants to do. So we don't mind. We're ready to worship a demigod also. Dhruva Maharaj was offering prayers to Kubera. Kubera offered a benediction. What would you like? Please let me be engaged in the service of Krishna. So we don't mind praying to a demigod, but this is our prayer. Please let me be engaged in Krishna's service. Is that okay?
thank you so much, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, here in the purport, Prabhupada explains that a mudha is one who does not accept the lordship of, Krishna as the Supreme Lord.
One who does not accept.
Krishna as the Supreme Lord.
Yes.
Even as devotees, many a times, or as a devotee, many a times I find that in the due course of rendering devotional service, I am also fooled by the senses. For example, one may be taking prasadam. One may be honoring prasadam, but in that one is not taking shelter of Krishna, but taking shelter of the tongue. Similarly,
What? In that one, yeah, try without the microphone, see if it does better.
we may be
You may be performing various devotional services.
But in the due course of performing the devotional service, we are not taking shelter of Krishna.
But in the course of performing devotional service, we're not taking shelter of Krishna.
Rather, we are taking shelter of our senses.
Rather, we're taking shelter of our senses.
In that way, the material energy actually makes a fool of us.
And the material energy makes a fool of us in that way. I'm not quite sure how you're thinking about it. In what way does the material energy fools of us?
Because we may call it devotional service, but actually are engaging in sense gratification.
Otherwise, serving Krishna with the senses, that's not bad. You have to serve, this is called crummy tech. Hare Krishna. We have to take shelter of our senses. If you want to offer arati to Krishna, then you have to use your hands, you have to use your eyes, you have to use your body. You can't say, well, no, I'm just going to take shelter of Krishna and let him do everything. Rishikena, Rishikesha, Sevanam. We have to apply our service, our senses, in the service of the Master of the senses. So using the senses is not bad, or even depending on the senses, because if I want to get something done, I'll have to depend on my senses. That's embodied life. We're not going to do it without the senses. But the senses should be engaged. Rishikena, Rishikesha Sevanam, for the service of Rishikesh, Krishna. Is that clear? In the name of engaging the senses, we get carried away by the senses. Therefore, one has to learn to senses. Just like prasadam, prasad seva. So it looks like whether you do something or you don't do something, it's going to be about the same. So you might as well just let it do its nonsense. And if somebody wants to fix the system, then pick a time and test the system. Otherwise, we test it during the class, and it's just distracting. Remember, I just said leave it alone. Let it do what it's going to do. It's not worse than having you be fiddling with it in the middle of the class. Just let it do its nonsense. And then some other time you can, if you want, do a full test and see how badly we've broken it. At least it distracts me. I don't know about others. Don't mind. I appreciate the effort. So prasad seva, we're doing service to Krishna by honoring prasadam, but sometimes the senses take charge, and then we eat more prasadam than is helpful for service. It becomes anti-service because we take so much that the senses become gaga, or we become bloated and want to sleep for 4 hours. So Krishna consciousness doesn't mean that I abandon the attempt to control the senses. But that's where we have to depend on Krishna, because lobamoy suduramati, the tongue is very lobamoy, full of greed. And duramati, it's difficult to control the tongue. So therefore one has to glorify Chaitanya Nitai, or pray to Krishna, please help me control my senses, so that one doesn't become The more one becomes absorbed in a service mentality, then the more the senses become controllable. If I'm absorbed in thinking of service, then I don't have time to do other things, to engage my senses otherwise. Is that okay? Okay. Something else? Yes.
My question is, how do we cultivate appreciating the transcendental potencies of Krishna?
How do we appreciate the transcendental potency of Krishna? By serving Krishna. The scientists or the speculators try to understand something without devotional service, and they just get bewildered by the material energy. But if someone serves Krishna, bhaktya mam abhijanati, then that's the only way by which you'll actually understand. What is that? Tunum svam in the Kathopanishad. Nayamatma pravachanena labhyo nameda sahana bhavanashrutena. One wouldn't understand the absolute truth just by speculations or by signing up for a lecture series or whatever. But when one serves Krishna, then Krishna becomes pleased and reveals his own form, his own potencies, his own qualities, his own everything. That's the point here, that without rendering service, we won't understand. And by rendering service, we will understand. Krishna will reveal the form of Krishna, the potencies of Krishna, the science of Krishna. Can't be understood by the non-devotee. They can understand something, but they won't actually get it. But the person who takes up devotional service can understand the whole thing. Is that okay? Something else? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
I was just wondering, what percentage of our services you feel like should the menial services constitute?
How much of our service should be menial service? It's all menial service.
It's all menial service.
Yeah. Even if you're you may be managing millions of dollars, or you may be, or a big construction project, or you may be editing books, or you may be doing whatever it is. It's all menial service. It's all menial service. That's what we are. We're not great brains and great heroes. We're just trying to do some little service. How, when Krishna has Lakshmi Sahasrasata, thousands of goddesses of fortune, serving him with devotion, how important is whatever service we're doing? When Krishna has demigods like Lord Brahma creating universes for him, how important is my little temple construction project? It's all menial service. But apart from that, to do things like washing pots and cleaning floors is good for us. It helps keep us from thinking, I'm the person who's editing the magazine, I'm the person who's building the multi-million-dollar temple, I'm the person who's pulling together all the IT systems, I'm this, I'm that. It reminds us that we're basically sweepers. That was the prayer of the explanation of the wives of Lord Krishna when they met Draupadi at Kurukshetra. Draupadi asked them, women get together and they discuss their marriage, their husbands, their children. That's natural. So Draupadi was asking the wives of Krishna about their marriage, their everything. And the wives were explaining one after another, Rukmini, Satya, and so on. Kamindi. So they were explaining that Krishna shot the arrow through the eye of the fish, and which was hidden by a cloth, and won me in the Swayamvara. And so now he's accepting me as his wife, although actually I'm just a maidservant in his house. They all expressed in different ways that Krishna married me this way, that way. And now, even though I'm just a sweeper, Krishna is accepting me as his wife. Is that okay? They were queens, all of them. You read about royalty, and my goodness, they're so puffed up. You know, a slight, what's the word? Neglect of their royal position, and they become miffed. And they're accustomed to having, you know, every kind of, you know, a person. Oh, please, could you put this ring on my finger? Could you, you know, that's royalty. Hundreds of people waiting upon them. But the queens of Krishna were, yes, Krishna went through so much trouble to marry me, but actually I'm just a servant in his house. Menial. Even Rukmini, it's described, maybe in the meeting of Sudama, with Sudama Brahman. No, in the place where, before Krishna started teasing her that you could get remarried. It's described she had so many servants, but personally she was taking the chamra and fanning Krishna. She didn't have to do that. She had plenty of other people who were ready to do it for her. She could have just sat there next to Krishna in her royal seat. But she personally took the chamra to fan the Lord. Menial service. Is that okay?
Yes, Hare Krishna, thank you. I also had a question. If somebody is accepting payment,
Excuse me?
if somebody is accepting payment while doing devotional service, is it still pure devotional service, or?
If someone's accepting payment, is it still pure devotional service? Generally, it's mixed. He has mixed reasons for serving. He's serving, but if you offer him more payment someplace else, then he goes there. He'll serve this deity, but if you offer him more over there, he'll serve that deity. That means mixed motives. And if you don't offer him the payment, he won't serve at all. Or he'll stay, but, I need more. Could you give more? So generally, payment situation. Of course, one may still be pure. Prabhupada had one godbrother, Dr. Sanyal, Professor Sanyal, quite a leading person in Gaudiya Math. And so he was a householder, but he was editing and doing all sorts of service for Saraswati Thakur. So Saraswati Thakur was arranged for some payment for him, but he wouldn't accept anything. He just give it back to the mud, as far as I heard. Prabhupada mentioned, I think, sometime that his wife had to go to Saraswati Thakur, the child has no shoes, whatever it was, because he just didn't want to take money. So sometimes just to keep just to keep the service going, one accepts something. And brahmacharis also, there's no such thing as free labor. Brahmacharis cost money also. You have to You have to put them up someplace. You have to pay for their soap. You have to spend money on them. There's no such thing as free. That's not real. But still, brahmacharis are cheap. A brahmachari doesn't require very much. Householder requires more if he's living as a householder. So sometimes a householder who's pure-minded and has no interest in material advancement may accept something just to keep the service going. But when we get into the payment arena, generally we start seeing mixed motives, or the likelihood of mixed motives appears. Okay? Or the suspicion of mixed motives. The person is actually pure-hearted, but others are thinking, I'm working for free, why is he getting paid? Or the person who's in charge is thinking everyone else is working for free, why do I have to pay him so much money? Or the other householders are thinking, I have to work and this person's not working, he's just living in the temple and enjoying a nice facility. So others become envious. Even if the person's intentions are pure or his consciousness is pure, there can be envy, there can be misunderstanding. Yes? Yes, Archita Prabhu.
Thank you, Maharaj. On this last question, there's always confusion about if devotees get paid, so Prabhupada dealt with it very directly.
Whoa. You're dealing with a man who's half deaf in a room with terrible acoustics.
Yeah.
So,
Prabhupada dealt with this question very directly. He said, if somebody works full-time for the society, they can be maintained to a minimum standard.
yeah.
So if that minimum standard is not sufficient for you, then you have to go outside and find other means. But
Yeah,
every
that's
endeavor
right.
requires land, capital, labor. We're living in a society where things are not given in kind. Previously, if you lived in a temple, somebody would bring, flour, vegetables, whatever you need. But what's the difference between bringing you a bag of flour or giving you money so you can go out and buy a bag of flour? It's the same it's the same thing. So we get confused sometimes. If somebody gets cash to go out and buy their toothpaste, what's the difference if somebody brings you some toothpaste?
Well,
it's the same thing.
That's there. There are 2 points there. One is whether someone gives cash or kind, it's the same thing. If the temple gives you money or the temple gives you a flat and pays for all of your food and all of your other expenses, and then you say, well, I'm not taking any money. Well, yeah, but you're taking money. So that's clear, yes. But yes, thank you for reminding me. Prabhupada did write that if they want to live at the temple expense, then they have to live Spartan, basically. They should be living like brahmacharis, practically. Not that someone lives, very, luxurious life, or even more than the minimum standard, and the temple is paying. After all, we're begging money from the public. Please give us a contribution. And then if we're putting people on the payroll so that they can live very nicely, that's not very good. Prabhupada said if they want to be paid, then it should be minimum standard. I remember I was talking one time with Madhusudan Prabhu, a late godbrother who was serving for the BPT. And he was serving in Los Angeles, and he was getting a flat and like toothpaste money. That much, hardly more. And he was married, but they were taking absolute minimum. We're not the only ones, by the way, who have this problem. Even nonprofits, they want to have a good person in charge of fundraising, and you have to pay, $250,000 a year for the person's salary because he's going to bring in 10 million. So these conundrums are there. These conundrums are there. But yes, Prabhupada's direction actually was no salaries. Or if they want a salary, then they have to live like bare minimum. Otherwise, let them live outside, make an honest living, and so on, and contribute. All right, should we end here? Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Krishna, Krishna.
Jayadvaita Swami ki